What was your starting point when you started working on the Ring cycle? How many years ago now?
I suppose Tony asked me to do it around 2000, 2001. We first started talking.
So 11, 12 years.
Yes, yes. I mean, it goes on. But I just come out of the experience of doing a complete cycle in Tokyo, which was the first cycle that they'd ever had in Japan, which was a great honor.
When did you start with the Ring at all?
Oh my God. Well, I started with the Ring, I suppose, here at Covent Garden when I was 13 or 14, seeing Schulte and Ted Downs doing that, cycles then, and becoming more and more obsessed with it. I think part of that was a decision to become a director. My love of Wagner was, I think, sort of provoked life choices, really, because I didn't have such a passionate feeling about other composers, other playwrights, yes, particularly Ibsen, but the whole business of life choice for me was somehow Wagner. So I mean that way. But for the Tokyo Ring particularly, I was asked really via Wolfgang Wagner when I was doing the Bayreuth Lohengrin. About 96, 97, something like that, whether I would like to do this Tokyo cycle. He was artistic advisor to the company then.
So you spent 25 years working on the Ring in a way?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, yes. There are, there's the odd bit of Stephen Sondheim in between or something, very healthy, but not, yeah.
What was the starting point then? How did you address it? You came out of the Tokyo production. Is this very different from what you did in Tokyo?
Yeah, completely and utterly different. I think in a way it couldn't be more different. And I mean, there's one thing I've said, and I think it's been in the press, it may be in Gary Kahn's book, about which more anon.
Which I can recommend, by the way. Gary Kahn did a book about this production, which is now out in paperback.
If you want a long explanation,
exactly,
about
longer than we can do
every
tonight.
detail, it's sheer brilliance.
Yes.
But actually, it's a beautiful book.
Yes.
I must say. But anyway, I have said on many occasions, having done nearly all the Wagner operas now, some on many occasions. I think that with Wagner production, there's only ever a degree of failure. There's never success. And you just become more and more used to that because there is so much in them. There is so much absolute meat and wealth of just stories, of information, of ideas, of worldviews, that actually all you ever do is make choices about what you're not going to include. Right, exactly. And we did this Ring with a British designer, David Fielding, in Tokyo, which was very bright and colourful and very story-led. It was like a sort of manga comic. I mean, actually, Fafner was Godzilla that came through the roof of the thing and picked up people, and the Japanese audience seemed to have a lot of fun with that. They loved the sort of references. We got in a lot of trouble with the Godzilla Corporation, unfortunately, who wanted to sue us for using Godzilla, but that's part of the Wagner universe too. It was very playful. It was very colourful. It was very primary colours, sort of a thing of working with certain designers, their personality. Obviously plays enormously into what you're doing.
So you decided to do a dark one in London instead?
Well, I came out of Tokyo having really spent a lot of time telling the story in a sort of flamboyant way, thinking that I wanted to do something that I thought I'd discovered that I hadn't even touched in Tokyo, which was this whole business of Wagner's relationship with Feuerbach, philosophical ideas about God and God in the universe, and what would a universe be like without God? Can we get rid of the concept God from the world? And the more I then started to read, which I found absolutely amazing, Wagner's own thoughts and writings at that time, changed later, but at that time of writing the librettos particularly, you know, I felt that this was something that helped me to really understand a lot of the motivation in, especially the character of Wotan Wanderer, but also in what's bequeathed to Siegfried and Brunhilde. And it was dark, and I think the world by 2001 was a darker place. I'm in my heart an optimist, but I must say I get more and more depressed as every day goes by at the moment. And that was certainly true by the time I started reading about or thinking about The Ring. And yeah.
So is there hope at the end? Is it a new beginning, or is it the end of the world?
I think there is hope, but I think it's a very specific hope. My belief on this now, and I know we all go through this, I know John Dethridge has marvellous things to say about this too, that the last, you know, 6.5 bars or whatever it is of what is called the redemption motive, and you know the other thing Wagner never wanted us to do was call things names by motives. He thought that was somehow a cheapening of things. The thing isn't a sword, it's a sword when somebody picks it up, but it becomes something else and it changes.
An idea as well.
Yeah, it's an idea and it changes its nature as John was just showing how themes change, so the dramatic moment of that thing changes. And as the world had changed around me, I started feeling darker and darker thoughts about all of the Wagner.
So the hope at the end?
The hope for me, and I think it is specific, is that with that theme, la da 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 dum ba dee dum, you know, the Leonard Bernstein theme and his West Side Story, is that it's the end of a massive artistic experience that we all have together. The end of 15 to 16 hours of sitting in a theatre. And I think the hope and Wagner's real religion is art and theatre itself. And I think what that theme does is to say, we who've experienced the artwork together, we take from this out now into the world, and we change the world, or we change ourselves. And I think it's on that level. I think every time it occurs in the piece, it's always about creation. It's not about Sieglinde and a baby. It's that, but it's the creation of a baby. It occurs again in a muted form in the love duet in the end of Siegfried, and most tellingly, the Rhine Maidens at the beginning of the third act of Götterdämmerung 4 tell this. And it's always about something that is created or might be created. I mean, a hokey way of doing it would be to bring up the house lights on that theme and get the whole audience to hold hands. Of course, you could probably do that in America and be a genius, but probably not here. But you can't. That's the feeling.
So in a way, the hope is inherent in the fact that we do this piece of art at all, and that we share this communal celebration of the myths.
That we've sold houses and cars in order to afford tickets for the Covent Garden Ring, and we have come to a point together of understanding something about living through the art of the theatre, and the theatre, not music alone, the theatre, music theatre. That to Wagner, the theatre was a central temple of change of society. It was a place you went. I was saying, yesterday, you know, you go to Bayreuth, the most podunk city in the entire world. It's really, if you've spent 7 summers of your life there, believe me, you would kill yourself.
Well, you're still here.
But the only thing there is this theatre sitting on a symbolically green hill. Other religions beware. And you go up to it. There is nothing else to do. You write pieces which are 6 or 7 hours long, so people cannot come from the industrial mills and whatever, and just at the end of a tired work day, go to this. You have to give your body and soul to this thing. And therefore, he was really trying to reinvent what art can do for society. And that, to me, is the primary thing. I don't think he's even begun to change that in what we could call the Wagner revolution in our approach to theatre. It seems to me to get ever more sidelined and not important, the arts. But actually, that was his dream. And I do think at the end of that piece, it's like years ago, anyone who saw Nicholas Nickleby, I don't know, which was still one of the great experiences of my life, I still talk about that people I was sitting with in Nicholas Nickleby, I saw it 3 times, on different occasions. You come out of great evenings of the theatre.
Almost even.
Yes, you come out a changed person. It has the ability to do that.
And there really is something, I mean, that's in a way a shame because now we're here in London, but really the great way of experiencing the rain cycle is to travel somewhere and see it, isn't it? Because it's actually, you should be away and only do that for a week. You feel that that's the way Wagner wanted it.
I mean, my wife and I, we still every year go to Stratford for weekends. There's nothing like it. If you go up and you get into that Shakespeare world for a Friday evening performance, Saturday matinee, Saturday evening. Sometimes they even do Sunday matinee. You can catch 4 plays. And the language becomes much easier, the atmosphere. You immerse yourself in the thing. And there is something, festival is a very, very important, I think, almost remaining hope for the arts, perhaps.
There was something I wanted specific about the Ring and the production. I was curious about seeing the dress rehearsal of Rheingold today. I think one of the striking things is that you've managed to make a Nibelheim that is really scary. I mean, that actually we understand that Wotan has in a way to do what he does because Vought Albrecht, you know, he talks about it, but it becomes very visual here that this is a very horrible place.
Horrible,
and people suffer there. And the way you make that suffering clear. But another thing that struck me today, that actually in this revival, Wolfgang Koch, who sings Albrecht, and Bryn Tervel is actually physically quite alike. So Wotan and Albrecht are like, but they, I mean, kind of Schwarzen Licht Albrecht concept which Wagner talks about, that they are flip sides of a coin. It becomes very apparent to me in this evening. And that brings me back to, I asked Bryn about it also, but I don't think he quite gave the answer. Is Wotan a good guy, or is he a villain? Is he a corrupt politician, or is he someone that fights against fascism? What's your take on Wotan?
Are you a good guy, Kasper?
Of course.
I doubt it. I mean, I think we're all very complex beings. I think he is simply one of the greatest creations in world drama. I mean, he's a Hamlet, he's a Lear, he's everything. Lear's an appalling human being, and you feel like hell for him. And as you get to know Wotan, he has this one enormous advantage over Albrecht. They were actually, both of them were incredibly interested in the rehearsal process of really melding that Schwarzlicht thing. And in fact, at the Curse, in one rehearsal, Bryn and Wolfgang kissed at the end of the Curse. They really kissed one another and then threw one another apart. And then, then you analyze that and you think, oh, well, people will think this is some sort of gay relationship or whatever, and we didn't, think. But that feeling was absolutely, intense for them and very, very important. Yes, and I think it's a very important part of the Ring that those two carry on. But Wotan's great advantage, as I was going to say, is that in the second act of Walküre, not so much at all in Rheingold, he sits and analyzes what he has done. He has the guts to sit with a mirror and say, these are the huge mistakes I have made. And to say it to the daughter, the only person that really matters to him in the world, by the thing, to sit that person down and say, look, I am a shit because I've done this, that, and the other. I am good because I have tried to do that. And I've got one thing for the future that I think is a good idea. And I think the ability to analyze that in Wotan turns him into a great tragic hero. Albrecht, it's interesting, who starts, we're trying to do it, he just starts, he's just this normal little elf. He comes down to the bottom of...
He wants to have fun.
He wants to have fun with 3 girls, why not?
Well, he wants to be loved also.
Yeah, and love, he's yearning, aching for love. But for whatever happens in that scene, whether it's sexual humiliation or pain that he feels, he never ever stops from that point hating. he never does what Wotan does at all, and sits back and says, now look, you know, this is ridiculous. This is too extreme. This was good. That was. Wotan does it always, and by the time the Wanderer, the human god, or humanized god, comes to visit him, I think this is what exactly Wanderer sees. He goes there. He's lurking outside Fafnir's cave. Wanderer knows he's going to meet him there. And he's exactly the same. He's full of the same bile and hatred and pain that he was in Rheingold. He hasn't changed a bit. And it's a great moment for the Wanderer, because at the end of that scene he has that the wonderful line where he says, look, everything must go its own way.
Yes.
And he has been able to do that. And Alberich is stuck.
Although it seems Wotan still has a little hand in the game, doesn't he?
Oh,
Although he says things will go its own way, and it's not maybe the complete truth.
Yes.
But
well, he still wants to interfere, but that's part of being who he was, isn't it? He can't. It's the dramatist again, the genius of Wagner, the dramatist. He has God say, "Let's end the idea of God," and then he can't quite do it. He can't quite let go. Brilliant. And when he finally meets the free man, Siegfried, he doesn't really like him very much, even though he's his grandson. You know, it's such a brilliant dramatic device.
Is that a kind of question mark to liberalism, and you know that idea of that free agent, that free hero? Actually, the uprooting of society and rules is not that great when it comes to it.
I don't know whether it's that. I don't know whether, as in Feuerbach, the idea of ridding the world of the concept God has to be done because God doesn't exist, and so it's a lie, a life lie, and so it has to be done. Or it's just, again, the dramatist instinct that it's much too pat to say if you hand everything over to man, it's all going to be okay. What we see in Götterdämmerung is a world that is so decadent and corrupt that it could be today. So it's not just a Promethean journey. No, it's not an answer. It's not the answer. No. But whether that has to be done because it has to be done, that's, I guess, one of the questions we have to ask when we come. Do we need to believe in God? It's one of the great 19th century philosophical problems. Do we need to believe in God or something to give our lives a structure and a harmony and a peace, even if it doesn't actually in reality exists, but it's still a need? Or can we really go it alone?
One of the things that for me always been, you know, for a stage director, what you really hope for, I mean, you can get good reviews or bad reviews, you have to make something that's a success or something that's a failure, but one of the things that I always think really distinguishes a really good stage director is when the singers speak nicely of him in a really honest way, when he's not there. You know, when singers say, well, actually, this person came and he knew what was going on, he helped me, and we just heard Bryn actually give you that.
Oh, really?
That actually you help him give shape to this incredible journey through the ring. What has been fantastic the last 7 weeks or 8 weeks have been to see you come back to be here for a revival. I mean, that's not always the case with directors, and spend all that time here working 3 sessions a day, even Sundays. You've worked a lot on a revival. What's it like to come back to the ring cycle? Have you gone further with it, or did you want to stay faithful to what you... I mean, Stefanos Lazaridis, of course, is not with us anymore. What was it like to come back to a project you developed with him, now without him?
That's been very, very, very hard. I've done, I've directed for 30 years, and Stefan was my constant designer throughout. I mean, I worked with other designers, but he did, Bayreuth with me. He's done many Staatsoper Berlin. We worked continually, and his death was an incredible shock. And we met at a restaurant to discuss a new project that we were going to do in Dresden, but also about things we wanted to change on this revival. And he told me he had cancer and that he didn't know how it would turn out. And 2 months later, he was dead. So you can't imagine that every set, every prop, every piece of furniture, things people touch, which when you work with Stefan, you discuss the buttons on somebody's costume because it mattered to him that it all meant something. That's been hard. That's been really, really tough. But also, it's full of wonderful things because he was also a wildly witty, crazy human being. And I did the oration at his funeral, and reminded everybody that when he was doing The Ring here at Covent Garden, I've got to tell a slightly Covent Garden story. He sat in the auditorium. It's never enough for Stefan. Once he'd finished doing the set, he looked around the auditorium of the Opera House and started saying, "These lamps, they are horrible lamps. These are like the lamps in my Indian restaurant in Notting Hill Gate. We should rename this not the Royal Opera House, but Tandoori Tralala."
Thank you for that.
So
we have a new nickname for the Royal Opera House.
An amazing thing, and I told that story at the funeral. It's been reported, I think. But I think so there was lots. We had a lot of fun as well, and always enormous amount of fun. But in the particular, God rest his soul, Stefan. But in the particular thing, it's been absolutely marvelous because I would say, I'm sure there are immense Wagnerians amongst us here today, but I have seen complete 16 cycles in my life and many other one-offs in different places. But irrespective of what I may be doing as a director, forget that, I think, this has to be the finest singing acting cast that any director's ever had, I would say. They're absolutely, almost within every role, extraordinary, and they care just as much about the drama as they do the music. And I think that's as close to Wagner's dream as it's possible to get. I told you the other day, and I'm going to bring you this, that there's this, and members of the Wagner Society, forgive me, because I sometimes start lectures at the Wagner Society, or have done so, and you start with this thing saying, look, I believe that at the final curtain of an opera, the person who has acted best and who has fully gone into the role, not by any means the person who has sung best, I'm not interested in singing, should get the loudest applause and the best critical attention. And of course people, and you say, this is a letter from Wagner to Röckel, his great friend in 1870. And it's absolutely true that it's very clear that Wagner's revolution, I mean, you've directed it, you know this, is not just about opera. He really wanted it to be music drama. And I know people have lots of views about productions and this one's too modern and that one's too difficult and this one's crazy. But there is a truth. If you're a real Wagnerian, you have got to acknowledge that his interest is as much in theatre, and theatre being new and exciting, as it is in singing or music. I don't think these things are either or. I think we must have them all. And I think that's the really hard thing. But I do think that from the colour of the text, the presentation of the text, the getting across of character, this cast is absolutely a one-off remarkable group of people. And I feel finally that actually what one sees is what I really want here. So that's been nice, very nice.
That's great. And Keith, when we talk to the cast, they all tell us that they do that because of you, so you make them great actors and great actresses. So
Dear God.
Congratulations. Thank you very much, Keith, and good luck for the coming week.
Thank you. Thank you.